Good morning. My name's Campbell McCrary. I'm a Vice President, Capital Markets at Amvest Capital in New York. Welcome to the Amvest Capital Inc. live webinar with Amex Exploration Inc. Amex trades on the TSXV as AMX, Alpha Mike X-ray, and on the OTCQX as AMXEF, as Alpha Mike X-ray Echo Foxtrot. Hope you'll enjoy today's program. It will also be available in replay mode. Very important, feel free to chat in your questions in the question pane of the GoToWebinar control panel, or simply email them in. We'll try and ask the questions in real time or after the webinar. A little bit about us. Amvest is a New York-based specialist investment management corporate finance firm focused solely on the natural resource sector. As our disclaimer said, this call is for informational purposes only. Presenting today is Kelly Malcolm. Kelly is the Vice President of Exploration at Amex. He's a professional geologist with extensive exploration experience, specializes in the integration and interpretation of geological, geochemical, and geophysical data to guide exploration and development activities. He was recently involved in the discovery and delineation of Detour Gold's high-grade 58N gold deposit. If you can tell us a little bit about that. And acts as a director, advisor, and management for several public and private mineral exploration companies. Following the formal presentation, members of Amvest Capital ask questions of management. We also look forward to any questions that you send in to us. So with that, welcome to the show, Kelly. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks so much for having me on. Really appreciate it. And thank you for everyone that is watching. We've got quite a broad audience here, and a lot of people are quite new to the story, Campbell. So what we're going to do is walk through our corporate presentation, introduce everyone to the story, and then we'll take a look at the drilling in 3 dimensions. And what we want to show you today is how large this project is in terms of scope, and also how high grade and how continuous the gold mineralization is on the property. So what I'll do now is I'm going to turn off my webcam and we'll start walking through the presentation.
Okay.
All right, so what you're looking at here is an example of very high-grade gold mineralization from the aptly named high-grade zone on our Perron project. This hole was drilled for metallurgical purposes and exceeded our expectations visually. As you can see in the photo, there is an abundance of visible gold present, and this is currently at SGS Labs undergoing metallurgical tests, which will give us a really good understanding of how recoverable this gold mineralization is, as well as give us a really good understanding of the gold content within this gold deposit. You can see that we've made a number of high-grade gold discoveries, and I'm going to walk you through 3 of them so far. So please be mindful of forward-looking statements. This disclaimer is available on our website. I will be making lots of forward-looking statements, so please be mindful of that. As you can see, we've had a very significant increase in our share price over the past year, and specifically over the past 19 months from our initial discovery of the high-grade zone. We're actually currently trading at about $3.40. From a run of this year, about $1 up to around that 340 mark. So significant appreciation in the market, and this is punctuated by significant drilling results. If you take a look back at our news over the past 19 months, you can see almost every 3 to 4 weeks we put out news, and almost every one of those news releases has a very significant number of drill hole intercepts. In terms of share structure, Eric Sprott is our major shareholder, holding about 15.5% of the company. He's participated in 3 private placements over the past 2 years. Commodity Capital owns around 8%, having participated in 4 private placements over the past 2 years. Management is very well vested in this story. We own about 13% of the company. We've got several Quebec institutions invested, as well as about a 25% other institutional shareholding base. So overall, a good distribution of shareholders from retail management, institutions, and high net worth individuals. Very tight share structure, 76 million shares out. We've raised in excess of $35 million over the past 2 years. Overall, on a fully diluted basis, 94 million shares out, market cap of around $250 million Canadian. Currently have over $25 million cash on hand. And these warrants that are listed here, the 11 or basically 12 million warrants, will bring in about $19 million of capital into the company. And all of those are well into the money. So we expect them to be exercised in the near term. In terms of the team here, we have Victor Cantore as the president and CEO, got involved in 2017 in the company along with his partner Wanda Cutler. Victor is a capital markets professional, been involved in the sector for well over 20 years, has built, financed, and structured numerous companies. Jacques Trottier is the chairman of the board. Jacques is a PhD geologist, previously founded a company called Amex Exploration, and Celadon built an asset called the Shawindo Mine. And what I love about that story is that it was a small artisanal mine that they grew to well over 3 million ounces of gold. It was taken over for over $600 million Canadian in 2014 and is currently being mined by Pan American Silver. Our COO and board member, Pierre Carrier, has built a number of TSX companies throughout his career. Our CFO, Martin Nicoletti, is the CFO for a number of junior exploration companies, largely based in Quebec. Myself, Kelly Malcolm, I'm a geologist, previously worked at Detour Gold for a number of years, where I was involved in the discovery of the high-grade 58 North gold deposit, and also worked on Canada's largest gold mine, which is Detour Lake, and have been involved in the junior exploration industry following that for a number of years as well. One of our newest board members, Brian Coates, is an independent director, past president and founder of Osisko Gold Royalties, ran that for about 5 years. What's really interesting about Brian is that he was actually born in the town of Normantal, which is where our project is focused. So it's really neat to have him coming back sort of full circle back to his hometown. Nick Gendron, she's a securities lawyer based in Montreal. Nick represents a number of junior exploration companies as counsel and corporate secretary. Yvon Gelina is an accountant based in Montreal and runs his own accounting firm. Andre Charek is a real estate entrepreneur based in Montreal. So overall, we've got a really broad group of individuals running the company, both on the management level and independent board members as well, guiding the company from the board level. We are focused on the province of Quebec. We've got a number of assets in Quebec, although one is our primary focus. For those that don't know, Quebec is a wonderful jurisdiction to explore and to mine. One of the major reasons it's such a great spot to be working in is the governmental tax incentives are spectacular. For an example, in 2019, we spent about $6 million of hard dollars in exploration, and we got a $1.65 million tax credit back from the government. We also have the advantage of being able to do flow-through financings at a significant premium to the share price, which results in much lesser dilution for existing shareholders. So wonderful spot to explore. The permitting process is great, and it's a very active mining jurisdiction. So we're focused on the town of Normantal. Our Perron project is directly adjacent, and we utilize a lot of the town's infrastructure. As you can see, it's connected to a highway network. I can drive there, and actually did drive there 2 days ago from my condo in Toronto to the project site in about 7 hours. By highway, we're connected to Timmins, Kirkland Lake, Rouyn-Noranda, Val-d'Or, and La Belle-sur-Quevillon. If we're looking on a regional geological picture, we're focused on the Abitibi Greenstone Belt. The Abitibi Greenstone Belt is the second most prolific producer of gold globally, with the exception of the Witwatersrand Belt in South Africa. There's a number of very significant mining camps throughout the Abitibi, including the Timmins camp, home to some of Goldcorp's flagship assets, Kirkland Lake, home to the Macassa mine, which I think at the moment is the second, was just recently rated one of the second best mines in the world. The Val-d'Or mining camp, home to one of Agnico's flagship assets, the LaRonde mine. Detour Lake, home to the Detour Lake mine, which, as I mentioned, is one of Canada's biggest gold mines. And we're basically right in the middle of the Abitibi along this Shakobee Deformation Zone. The Shakobee Deformation Zone shares the same geology, same geochemical signature, very similar structural geology as the other major breaks in the deposit or in the Abitibi. It's just been much lesser explored. So as I'll show you shortly, we've made a number of significant gold deposits or gold discoveries, and I expect that this Shakobee Deformation Zone will come to be very important in this current gold market that we're going into right now. Also of note is the Normatal mine. It's about 10 kilometers to the southeast of us, and this was a really profitable producer. The mine started at surface, went down to 2.4 kilometers depth, mined over 50 years. And the reason that's so important for us is it shows that this belt can host very deep mines, because a lot of our mineralization has the indication that it will go down very significantly to depth. So it's very important to have an analog just next door that can go down to those depths. Speaking about infrastructure, we have very, very low cost drilling at the Perron project, and that is largely owing to the infrastructure in place. We don't use helicopters on the project. It's all road access. Our drilling cost is about $150 Canadian per meter, which is, I think it's one of the lowest cost drilling programs I've seen in my career. The industry norm is about $300 to $350 per meter Canadian. As I mentioned, Normatal is one of the reasons that this project is so inexpensive to work on. We've got a very skilled local workforce that supplies workers to a number of different mines in the area. We've got very low cost housing and access to town amenities. We have this very large core shack, again, one of the bigger core shacks that I've ever seen in my career. We purchased it a little over 6 months ago for a very inexpensive price of $70,000. We renovated it, and now it can handle up to about 10 to 12 drill rigs. So we can dramatically upsize our existing drill program, utilizing existing infrastructure, and still be in a very good position going forward. Now on to the geology. So we're focused on this yellow block within the center of the screen. We call it the Beaupré rhyolite block. One of the reasons that we're so focused on it is that it's a specialized rhyolite. So a rhyolite is a felsic volcanic rock, and this particular rhyolite has a sodium-rich chemistry, and that seems to interact with gold fluids that are traveling through the area and results in the deposition of gold. We've made 4 different gold discoveries to date on the project. The Gretchen gold zone, which was the first discovery of gold on this property. That was found in the 1990s, 1996 to be exact. Following that, in 2013, we made the discovery of the central polymetallic zone, which is a gold-rich VMS type system. And then in December of 2017, we drilled a single drill hole into the eastern gold zone that was really attractive, but we waited until the following fall when we got our tax credits back to go back and re-drill that discovery. And that's when we knew we had something very significant. So that was November of 2018. And if you take a look at our stock chart over the past 2 years, you'll see that we essentially haven't stopped drilling on this discovery since then. We've dramatically increased the number of drills on the property as we continue to gain confidence that this is a very sizable, significant, and high-grade gold discovery. We also made the discovery of the Grey Cat gold zone in July of 2019. And what I'll do now is I'm going to walk you through 3 of these different deposits. So the Eastern Gold Zone, the Grey Cat Zone, and the Gretchen Gold Zone. Speaking of the sodic rhyolite and the 4 different discoveries we've made to date, we've identified something that we call the Perron Gold Corridor. And this is at least a 2.7 kilometer long system where every single drill hole, as you can see in this plan view, intercepts at least 0.5 gram per ton gold mineralization, and in many cases, very significantly higher than that. And one of our objectives for the company going forward is to start testing in between these areas of known mineralization and attempt to build up a very sizable near surface bulk tonnage type resource, and then continue to work to develop these underground, very high-grade ore shoots. And the reason that we want to do this sort of two-tiered approach is it provides significant optionality. In a very significant gold market, low-grade bulk tonnage deposits work very, very well. But in any gold market, high-grade gold is always king. So we want to be able to provide both of those scenarios. And again, if you take a look back at our news over the past little while, you'll see that we have the ability to provide both. The other thing I want to mention is that we're in the middle of a 200,000 meter 6-drill program, which again is one of the largest drilling programs in Canada by a junior company at the moment. And this is fully funded. We're very well cashed up. This is a neat comparative slide. So what we're looking at the top is a hypothetical example of our strike length, showing the 3 major discoveries we've made to date, drilled down to a depth of only 850 meters. We've got about 15 kilometers of strike to explore. To the south of us, we have Agnico's LaRonde mine, IAMGOLD's Westwood mine, as part of the Musca-LaRonde belt. This belt has produced over 28 million ounces of gold over approximately the same strike length. And what's really exciting to me is that you get a repetition of these deposits every 1 to 1.5 kilometers along this break. But the most significant thing is the depth potential of the Abitibi. So I mentioned that before about our neighboring Normatal mine, but this LaRonde mine is a fantastic example of what can happen as you drill down to depth on these deposits. So Agnico has currently developed resources down to about 4 kilometers depth. They've mined it down to around 3. And what's really exciting about a lot of these discoveries is they have the potential to increase in strike length, width, and grade as you continue going down to depth. So that bodes very positively for us as a comparative. What we're going to do now is take a look at the individual zones on the property. So we have the Eastern Gold Zone. We're always going to leave this legend map in so everyone has a sense of where they are on the project. The Eastern Gold Zone is comprised of several different lenses of gold mineralization. We have our HGZ, which is called the high-grade zone, very continuous, very linear, very straight, very easy to drill, and thus should be very easy to mine in an underground mining scenario. And then we've got these Denise zones. Denise is comprised of 3 different zones of really interesting gold mineralization. It's very broad. However, there's a significant high-grade component to it as well. So what you're looking at on this hole, PE 1983, is the deepest hole drilled to date in the Denise zone. It returned 7 grams over 32.2 meters. But what gets me very excited is this high-grade core of 39.9 grams over 5.5 meters. That marks this orange zone within here. Just above that, we hit 4.9 over 13.5. And the reason this is so exciting for me is if you're imagining an underground mining scenario where you're mining out this high-grade zone in a classical conventional underground mine, as you get into this area where the Denise zone becomes particularly high-grade, you can start drifting over and mining these 2 zones in tandem, which could provide some really compelling economics for that underground mining scenario. What I'll do now is I'll show you this high-grade zone in a long section, so basically looking at the vein as if you were staring at it from underground. So this is it here. We've drilled it down now to about 850 meters vertical depth over a strike of approximately 350 meters. Most of 2019, we focused on the near surface portion. All these red dots represent drill hole intercepts that we've hit into the zone. We've drilled it at roughly 25 meter spacings through this upper portion, had some really wonderful results, 56 grams over 8.5 meters, 393 grams, which is 12 or so ounces over 1.7 meters, 32 grams over 5.9, which is essentially an ounce per ton over 5.9 meters, 25 over 6. And then most of 2020, what we've done is worked on defining the system down to depth. It's really exceeded our expectations. We've intercepted very high-grade gold over a very significant vertical extent. And what our plan now is to start testing this along strike and drill it down to about 1 kilometer and define our resource on this overall panel of gold mineralization. As you can see, it's very much open at depth, open along strike. And what I'll do is I'll flip to the next page, which will show you some of these highlight holes that we've drilled to date. We're seeing essentially half an ounce per ton gold over 7.1 meters, nearly 1 ounce over 8.5 meters, a third of an ounce over 10.3 meters, 6.5 grams over 10 meters, 4.6 over 10, a staggering 393 over 1.7, 270 over 1.3, an ounce over 6, 25 over 5, 16 over 10, 56 over 8.5. It's a really, really high grade system. And what I'm going to do is at the end of this presentation, I'll take everyone into our three-dimensional model, and you'll see how continuous this high grade gold is across the project. It's really, it's one of the most continuous high grade systems I've seen in my career looking at hundreds of projects. Speaking of continuity or the consistency of gold within the system, this is a 1.7 meter vein that grades 393 grams per ton. We subdivided that into 3 individual samples. One returned 0.55 meters of 236 grams per ton. Another returned half a meter of well over 20 ounces per ton gold. Another returned 0.65 meters of 307 grams per ton gold. The reason that's so important for us is in high grade gold systems, consistency is king. It's really important to have consistent grade when you're doing your resource calculation, because statistics are really, they really come into play in terms of the statisticians putting a top cut on your resource. So the more consistent and homogeneous the gold system is, the higher grade resource the resource modelers are comfortable putting on your project. So very, very important that we have this consistency. And as again, as I'll show you in 3D, we can clearly demonstrate that there is very consistent, very high grade gold on this project. So now we've moved about 2.7 kilometers to the west onto the Gretchen gold zone. As I mentioned, this was a discovery that was made in about 1996. It's been worked on sporadically over the years since then, but it wasn't until we made our discovery of the high grade zone that we started reinterpreting all of the historical data on the property, and we identified the potential for high grade gold within this, what was thought to be a very low grade system. We've done about 15,000 meters of drilling now into this zone. And as you can see, we were very successful in drilling high grade gold. Some of our first few holes into the system resulted in 1.4 meters of 67 grams, 4.2 meters of half an ounce per ton, 4.9 meters of 27 grams per ton. And again, speaking to that consistency and continuity of mineralization, within this 4.9 meter interval, essentially all of the subsamples returned better than half an ounce per ton gold, which again is very important for our resource in the future. In addition, we hit half a meter of 62, and my favorite hole of 14.6 meters of half an ounce per ton, with again a high grade core of 4.9 meters of an ounce and a half mineralization. Looking at a long section, so again, imagine being underground and looking at this vein system from underground. You can see it's roughly 1 kilometer long. It's very sparsely drilled. So what our plan here is to do is to define an open pitable resource down to about 250 meters, and then start testing the system down to depth, looking for high grade chutes that could be mined in an underground mining scenario. Moving towards the center of our 4 deposits, we're on the Grey Cat gold zone. The Grey Cat, as I mentioned earlier, is a new discovery made in July of 2019. As you can see here, this is a major fault on the property. We call it the Perron fault. And this discovery is a little bit further away from the major thrust fault in the system. As a result, the gold here is a bit more disseminated, behaves in a little bit different manner, and that results in much wider intercepts. These are near surface. Our first few holes here, 34 meters of 1.89. 26 meters of 3.4, 28 meters of 1.2, 6.5 meters of 9 grams, and 2.7 of 24 grams per ton. And again, looking at a long section from underground, you can see it goes directly to surface. We've defined it pretty well down to about 200 meters. And the goal here again is to define an open pittable near surface resource. And we're currently drilling at depth on this system. And we're very pleased with what we're seeing visually. And as you can see here, this is a vein sample from the Grey Cat. Again, we're hitting visible gold on this target. So we definitely have the potential for some very high grade gold going down to depth in the system as well. On a regional front, this is a very high resolution magnetic survey that we flew in November of 2019. It identified a number of structures that were previously invisible to us with the existing surveys that we had on the project. That generated a number of very high priority drill targets that are in areas that have not really ever been drilled or drilled very sporadically. So we're very excited about the potential that we have elsewhere on the project. As such, we've dedicated 20,000 meters out of our 200,000 meter program to regional exploration, looking for additional deposits and trying to bring the blue sky down to investors. And we are all big shareholders as management, so obviously that includes us as well. And then just in summary, we've got 100% owned land position, 15 kilometers of highly prospective thrust faults on an underexplored Abitibi Greenstone Belt structure. We have the opportunity for multiple ore deposits of both orogenic gold and gold-rich polymetallic VMS systems. Our aim here is to drill off these new discoveries into a 43-101 resource estimate. The tentative plan to do so will be sometime late 2021 after we've had sufficient drilling to complete our 200,000 meter drilling program. We've got a team of mine finders, mine developers, mine financiers, and importantly, mine sellers. We've got a very tight capital structure. We are one of the most cashed up juniors on the street. We've got around $25 million of cash in the bank, plus $19 million of well in the money warrants. We've got Eric Sprott, who, if any of you listen to his podcast, often talks about us. I think last week he said some really great things about our drill results last week. So I encourage you to check out Eric's blog. I think it's on sprottmoney.com. And we've got a $21 million, 200,000 meter drilling program on the go, which, as I mentioned, is one of the biggest drilling programs by any junior in Canada at the moment. So what I'm going to do now is end this PowerPoint and open up my Leapfrog three-dimensional model. And what I want you to take from this three-dimensional look is the continuity of high-grade gold present on this project. So for reference, this is again the overall Perron property, and this is the area of interest. It's the Beaupré rhyolite block. And then of particular interest is this Perron gold corridor that we've identified. So I'll turn off my geology. And what you can see here is that there's been a fair amount of drilling on this project to date. So all these different lines represent either historic or current drill holes. In the past, a lot of different operators focused on this northern rhyolite pile looking for VMS deposits. And it wasn't until the 90s that people really started drilling into this Beaupré block. And that's when people identified the potential for this high-grade gold in the system. I'm just going to put this down to 0.5. Okay, so what we're looking at here is basically every intercept within this Perron gold corridor better than 0.5 gram per ton gold. Here's our legend. So everything in blue on this screen is about 0.5 gram. Everything in pink is better than 20 grams per ton gold. And what I'm going to do is I'll do a look at the actual continuity of the system. So we'll work our way through the different gold assays to give you an idea of how rich this thing is. So as I mentioned down here, we're down to about 850 meters. This is our Eastern Gold Zone, our Grey Cat Gold Zone, and our Gretchen Gold Zone. I mentioned across this Perron gold corridor, there's significant potential to drill in between these different zones, identify the potential for a bulk tonnage system. And what we'll do now is I'll just change the grade on our cutoff, and you'll see how high grade this system can be. So right now it's a 0.5 gram. If we go to 2 gram, you can see there's really not that much change in the overall distribution of gold. If we go to 5 grams, again, you can still see very clearly these individual gold deposits with a strong distribution of better than 5 gram gold mineralization. 7.5 grams, again, you're seeing a very significant spread of gold mineralization across these deposits. 10 grams per ton, again, oops. Again, you're still seeing that very strong distribution. And even at 20 grams per ton gold, you're seeing a very significant spread of gold throughout this overall property. And the other thing that I want to just point out quickly before we go to the Q&A session is I mentioned before how continuous and how linear the high grade zone of the Eastern Gold Zone is. So what we'll do is we'll slice this, and we'll do it at a very small slicing width of 25 meters, and then we'll look at it from underground. So across only 25 meters of width, you can see how continuous this mineralization is across this overall system. And here is that long section that I showed you before. You can see a very strong distribution of that. If we put on our 20 gram per ton mineralization, a very strong distribution of that 20 gram per ton gold across the entirety of this 850 meter deep minimum gold system. So we're very, very much excited about this project, very excited about this zone in particular, but also about the overall property potential here. And I would say keep your eyes out for additional news flow. We're very continuous with it, very regular. And at this point, what I'll do is I'll turn my webcam on, and we'll take a look at any questions that anyone may have.
Great.
Thanks very much for listening. I really appreciate it.
Kelly, if you want to put up a slide, maybe because we'll be looking at the screen for a while, that would be
Sure.
kind of interesting, maybe a map to get started. So a lot of questions that have been sent in, really appreciate it, gang, and keep sending them in. This is your chance to talk to Kelly, so to speak. So as we all know, stock has doubled over the past month. 4 drill result press releases. Price of gold is up as well, but nowhere near where your stocks moved. Comments on the relationship between the gold price and your stock price, and expectations of the market.
Yeah, so take a look
to keep you up at night, keep fulfilling these expectations. So
if you take a look at our stock price over the past 2 years,
yeah,
you're going to see volume spikes coming in along with share price appreciations. We're very consistent with news. The good thing about our project is that because of the grade, it's really not all that reliant upon gold price. You can make money mining an ounce per ton material at even $300 gold. The thing that's really changed for us is investor sentiment. So with this increase in gold price, in particular in our last private placement that we did, it was $15.75 million. That was supposed to be a $9 million placement. We had by 10 a.m. the next morning, I think it was $21 million of interest in that private placement, with a bunch of different funds that haven't played in the sector in quite a number of years. So we're seeing a new group of institutional investors coming in. You're seeing a new group of retail investors coming in, and it's a really fun time to have an advanced gold discovery and gold project, because the market is now very receptive to the type of material that we're coming out with on a regular basis in our news flow.
So that there, Abitibi is everyone knows where it is. A lot of large producers there. How did you come to get the property, and how did the large mining companies miss it, or some of the clever, nimble, exploration groups? How did you get in there?
So this one is a story of perseverance. So this project was picked up in 1997 by this company. It's been held probably longer than most other exploration companies holds anything. It's been worked on sort of sporadically throughout the years. And it wasn't really until 2013 that the property sort of changed focus. They had some flow through in the company. They drilled a hole that resulted in the discovery of the central polymetallic zone.
Mm-hmm.
After that release came out, the previous president showed that drill core to Agnico Eagle. Agnico actually came on the property. They did an option deal for a period of 3 years. They spent about $3.1 million of a $4 million 51% earn-in. They returned the project back to us in June of 2017. They didn't earn a single percentage of interest in it. We took all the data historically from Agnico. We put that into a really comprehensive 3D model that generated about 15 different drill targets. Our third target from that program was the discovery of the Eastern Gold Zone, and it sort of just blossomed from there. And speaking of major producers, we've had a number of large companies on site. We've signed a number of CAs. Even actually on Monday of this past week, we were entertaining a corporate guest that was taking a very detailed look at the project. So it's definitely advancing in the right direction as we go forward.
And then any idea of the resource? And I guess that would determine what kind of large cap would be interested. So what are you shooting for, let's say?
We're shooting for something very sizable, well into the 7 figures in terms of number of ounces. If you take a look at the dimensions of our Perron gold corridor, it's very robust. There's a number of different analyst reports out there quoting very different numbers of ounces in the ground, but everyone's well over that sort of multi-million ounce number, and that's the resource that we're shooting for as well. Is sizable.
Thank you.
Thanks, that Kelly. And just on the resource, when are you targeting the release? Like what quarter, roughly?
So we plan to initiate it sometime Q3, Q4 2021, with the initial release coming out sort of beginning 2022. And that the thing that may change that, Stuart, is the regional exploration program. In the event of a significant discovery elsewhere on the property, we'll definitely want to delineate and include that within our maiden resource on the property. So that would be the thing that could change the timing on the resource, but overall our objective here is to get a resource out. We want to get this project advanced quickly. We take very low salaries, probably some of the lowest in the exploration industry. We all own a significant chunk of stock, and we'd like to do what's best for shareholders here rather than sit on this company and project for 10, 15 years and milk a salary out of it.
Yeah, for sure. And just on the drill campaign, I mean, do you know if it is one of the highest globally in terms of meters in a junior? Because it's, yeah,
well,
200,000 meters, pretty impressive.
Take a look at the number of drills. I think the number one exploration company in the street is GBR. I'm sure everyone knows that story very well. They've done exceptionally well on their Dixie project. They've got 5 drills operating. We've got 6 spinning at the moment. We're very aggressive. There's few companies that are this active, I think, in all of Canada.
Yeah, it's exciting. Thanks for that.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Kelly. And thanks for the leapfrog viewer. I think that was really helpful to see that, especially kind of having you run through the different grade scenarios. So it's interesting, the approach to do a resource sort of, so, you know, over a year from now. Does that have like any, is there any reason for that fundamentally in terms of, you know, what you're seeing the mining scenario to look like in terms of, would it be an open pit, would it be an underground, would it be a combination? And so you don't want to put a resource around the thing right now because you want to kind of let it go and also let the market sort of decide how much is there and let them dream about it? Or what's the view on that?
Well, yeah, so we do things a little bit differently than most companies. We're one of the more transparent groups out there. We have our whole drilling database on our website. So anyone can go in, download that. It's not just composites, it's every individual assay, along with geology, which provides really anyone the ability to make their own resource model on our project. So we're one of the few companies that puts their full database up. The reason for that is you're right, we could wrap a resource around what we have right now, but we think that it's much more meaningful and much more impactful to drill off the project to the point where we think it's in a really strong position with a ribbon wrapped around it and a bow on top, and we think that it's much more meaningful to put out a very sizable, substantial resource once we've drilled it off to somewhere that we're very happy with, versus sort of putting these continued updated resources out, which was sort of in the last cycle, that seemed like that was the model, is update your resource by 100,000 ounces here, 100,000 ounces there. But you're seeing the stronger exploration stories out there right now are actually doing the opposite. They're leaving the blue sky on the table and waiting until they've drilled it off sizably. And GBR is another good example of a company that's done just that. And it's worked well for us. Putting our database online has actually resulted in some really interesting discussions with some producers. So it's been a strategy that's worked, and it's definitely working well in this market too.
Yeah, for sure. And I like that. I like the transparency. Provided you can actually use the software properly, it's good. So what is this going to look like? I guess you're going to keep drilling it. I'm trying to understand, what sort of areas are you going to be focusing on the drilling to create what you feel is like the optimal mining scenario, right? So the value here is going to be how you can extract from the ground, most effectively. So where can you guide us?
Low cost
are? Yeah,
low cost ounces are king in every gold project. You look at, so Kirkland Lake Gold is probably everyone's favorite mid-tier producer at the moment. The reason being the grade they have is stunning. High grade is, like I said, high grade is king in any market. So our major focus right now, to give you an example of how focused we are on it, 5 of our 6 drills are currently drilling on the Eastern Gold Zone at the moment. We're going to take one of those and deploy it over to the exploration in between the different zones. And our 6th drill currently is on the Grey Cat Zone. So our major focus is on defining those high quality, high grade ounces on the high grade zone. Second priority would be the Grey Cat Zone and the Gretchen Zone. And third would be sort of linking all those different projects or mineralization systems together into one comprehensive body. So in terms of best bang for your buck, our management's opinion is that the high grade is where we're going to get the most value for shareholders in an eventual or possible takeout scenario, or even an underground mining situation.
Okay. Is there a lot of cover, or what's the cover look like?
It's a funny project. There's basically no outcrop, so there's no outcropping rock across the whole property, but the overburden coverage is only 5 to 20 meters across the whole thing. So it's actually quite shallow in terms of cover, so easily exploitable by open pit or by sort of a portal head frame type scenario.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
So invariably, both in what you mentioned and in the Q&A, Great Bear comes up as a analog, as for an investment analog, let's say. So I'll get that out of the way. So Perron feels like it has Perron feels like it has the potential to be similar in scale to Great Bear's Dixie. Is that potentially accurate? Let's kind of roll up all these questions. Then a well-known analyst shot in, Great Bear used a 2 and 5 gram cutoff, while you guys used a 10 gram cutoff. Continuity of the high grade seems to be less significant than yours, with a much higher cutoff. I'm a big fan of continuity high grade. Have you had a chance to compare the high grade gold continuity on your project and theirs? And I guess, anything you want to differentiate or say is similar with Great Bear, I think this is a good time to
yeah, so I'm happy to do that.
Even though we're not really supposed to talk about other companies, but
no,
as an investor, people look at their portfolio and they want the next Great Bear. So anyway.
So I agree. I usually don't do comparative chats, but this one's come up a lot lately, especially as we sort of seen our our market perception of the project expanding significantly. For quite some time, all we had in the market's eyes was the single Eastern Gold Zone. And now we've really sort of reiterated the idea of this overall gold corridor. So speaking to comp, like I honestly, I think they've done a fantastic job, and I wish I owned more of it. But it's been a great story for the market, and it's really opened a lot of people's eyes to what the gold market can do. So kudos to them. So they had a sort of similar situation where they had the Hinge Zone, super high grade, looks like it's going to go down to depth. I think they've drilled it to about 500 meters or so. So we've now gone to about 1 kilometer. And as I can't see who actually asked the question, but as they mentioned, we've got really strong continuity of that plus 10 gram per ton mineralization. I would even say plus 20 gram per ton mineralization. And then the overall Perron gold corridor would be comparable to the LP fault system, where they're seeing mineralization essentially every drill hole that they pop into that overall LP fault. They're hitting gold. So I haven't seen all of their drill results. I'm not sure if they report every intercept or not, but it certainly looks like it's a very auriferous corridor. And as I showed you before with our look at the leapfrog, actually I can show you. I'm not sure if you guys, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so if you take a look at this is 2.7 kilometers long, but if you look further along strike, there's gold mineralization trending off to the east and trending off to the west. Every single drill hole within this corridor is hitting gold mineralization. So I would say that's a pretty solid comp. And the other thing that they have going for them that we also have going for them, or going for us, is jurisdiction. They're in the Red Lake Mining Camp, one of the best places to explore for gold in Canada. We're in the Abitibi, in a mining town. We're in a really wonderful spot as well for eventual mining of this gold.
Gotcha. I'll pass it on to you, Stu. Go ahead.
No worries. And just quickly,
Lost my
so
train of thought.
about 10% of the current drill programs targeting kind of regional greenfields prospects. Is that right?
Correct. Yep.
Gotcha. And have you previously, outside of the current program, have you previously tested any of those zones with drilling, or they're completely greenfields?
No, we started doing it this past winter. So we've done, I think, about 15 holes of regional work. We haven't released anything. What we'd like to do is a batch of exploration results at some point in the future. We plan to resume our regional program in August. Everything's very swampy up there still. It's believe it or not, in Toronto, it's been spectacular for weather, but up north, it's rained pretty well every day. So we do plan to do an exploration update at some point in the future, but we're very happy with what we've seen both in geology, mineralization, structure, and gold content. So we're enthused about the potential for additional discoveries elsewhere.
Yeah, gotcha. And then on the metallurgy, have you, I noticed you're commencing it this year, but have you done any preliminary work, with the different mineralization zones? You have the classic orogenic gold system and then the gold polymetallic sections. Just wondering if you've done any preliminary work on the metallurgy for both sections.
We have not. What we've done is we do screen metallic assays on everything that contains visible gold or sphalerite. So sphalerite is a zinc sulfide mineral, and that's one of the key criteria and key indicators for gold for us on the project. So anytime we see either of those, we send it off for a screen metallic, and a screen metallic basically just crushes the entirety of the sample and picks out, so the person literally picks out individual flakes of gold. And the neat thing about those assays is that it gives you an idea of how much free gold is in the system. So typically 90+% of our screen metallic assays, the gold comes into the coarse portion of that assay, meaning that it's almost completely free gold within the system. So we're expecting really, really significantly high recoveries from this metallurgical work, along with an increase in grade from what we were expecting when we first drilled those holes into those high grade zones looking for a pseudo bulk sample for the metallurgical tests.
Gotcha. And then just one last one for me on how deep is the deepest hole you've drilled so far?
We're currently drilling to about 950 meters depth. Vertically, that is in progress. We just finished a hole that was around 850, that it will be in the lab shortly. And we plan to go down to around 1 kilometer for our resource, and then we'll do some fun sort of blue sky holes deeper in the system as well. But we're not going to be drilling off a resource down below 1 kilometer. It just becomes too expensive.
Gotcha.
And it's, yeah.
And then on the cost, I know from a previous meeting, you mentioned you were getting around 150 meters, $150 per meter. Are you kind of still experiencing that versus some of your peers, which may be getting $250 to $300 a meter?
Yeah, we did a complete analysis of our expenditures to date this year, including geologists, assays, lodging, food, travel, everything. I think we were $148.67 so far in 2020. So we're inexpensive. As you start drilling the deeper holes, your costs are going to go up a little bit, but it's a negligible increase. It's going to be another sort of $10, $15 a meter only on the deep portions. And I think the value that we gain from drilling these deep holes, when a lot of companies are sort of fearful to aggressively drill down to depth, I think we gain a lot of market appreciation for doing so. And with the $15 million that we raised, I guess a little over a month and a half ago, we get 100,000 meters of drilling. So it's pretty spectacular what that low cost does in terms of translating dollars into drill holes.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks.
So the 15 million that was spent on the last program, are the results, are there still more results coming from that, or have those all been
We've basically
released?
always got results coming. So I think over the past month, we've put 2 or 3 releases out. We're very consistent with our news. We try to get news out every 3 weeks, maximum 4 weeks. With 6 drills going, there's a steady stream of core samples off to the lab. And we've got a really good understanding now of the deposit. So essentially expect consistent high grade results coming out of the Eastern Gold Zone on a regular basis.
Okay. Is the last program done, or that money's finished, now you're spending on the new program, or there's still
We basically just expanded our program. So after we were in a 100,000 meter program. After we raised the 15, we cranked it up by another 100,000. So put it onto the 200,000 meter ongoing program. We've drilled of that probably 90-some thousand meters out of the 200,000. So lots of additional news to come, lots of additional drilling to come. And as I mentioned, that's fully funded. So 21 of the $25 million that we have in the bank are flow-through dollars that must be spent by the end of 2021. So we're mandated to have a very aggressive drilling program. Not that it's we definitely want to do that, but it's also we're really forced to continue to attack this aggressively.
Yeah, fair enough. That's good for us as well. The market as well, with short attention span. So that's great. Just touch on that for a second. So if I just pull up the chart, you had a big move up in June. You had all this great news before, right? And it was kind of steadily moving. What changed in June, really? Sort of just kind of mid-June for you guys.
Can you see my screen?
Yep.
You can see that. So I'll give you kind of a breakdown of the stock. It's a neat chart. So like I mentioned before, end of 2017, we discovered the Eastern Gold Zone with a single hole. Stock popped a bit, didn't do anything. We started drilling into the Eastern Gold Zone again, November of 2018, with one drill, sort of consistent results. You can see this volume increase. We put out a stunning hole here. I think it was 390 over 1.7 meters. And then we had Sprott come into a placement of about $5 million. And that was sort of at the beginning of his investment spree over the past year. So we got massive buying right away. So a humongous spike from about 8 cents up to $1.50, and that was too quick of a rise, but fell off. And then basically we backfilled that number with consistent results. Almost every one of these massive volume spikes correlates to a very significant drill hole. And then we had COVID. We had a big crunch when basically we were forced to stop drilling. The stock dropped from almost $2 down to under $1, which was obviously scary for all involved. But since then, we've been putting out really great news and great results. And this big run up, in my eyes, happened right after we closed our $15 million financing. We announced the upsize to 6 drills. We announced the upsize to 200,000 meters. And then we had really spectacular news coming out every week or 2 weeks following that. And one of the main reasons that it spiked is that a lot of our institutional shareholders started getting a bigger picture of the system. As I mentioned, that the understanding of that gold corridor has been really important for us, and the fact that we're able to hit such significant high grade at depth. Actually, this will be a fun one to show everyone. So just looking at the past news, so July 16th, 9 meters of 44 grams. July 8th, 3 meters of 35 grams, 5.6 of 28. So here's really when it popped. So I mentioned we closed our $15 million financing at $1.50, announced the increase of the drill program to 200,000 meters. And then from then you can see on the price appreciation, it's just really moved. And then, as I mentioned, we consistently put out really great numbers across the project. So it's been a really fun 2 years for us and for all shareholders as well.
Yeah.
And you've got my very busy desktop in the background that I'll hide.
It's a functioning market. I think that's important. You know, you get kind of what you expect too. So that's really useful. I just have one last question. You know, you mentioned a lot Perron. What is it? A town? What's the name about?
So it's the town of Normatel. It's a tiny little mining town. Actually, you know what? This would be neat too. Hold on. Since we have this wonderful interface, let me see if I can pull up. So if we look at Normatel, Quebec, and we'll put on a satellite view, I can show you where we are. So you can see I love where we are, but overall, we've got Toronto down to the south, and we drive up the highway to the town of Lassar, continue driving up the highway to the town of Normatel. Our main operation is essentially at this big building here. It was the old curling rink in the area. And then you take there's a bush road north. What's really neat is this is historical tailings from the Normatel mine. This thing fenced in right here is a past decline into a satellite deposit called the Normet Marshalling. And then you keep taking the road across and it brings you into our Perron project, and it's all road accessible. Coming across, you can see some of these different drill roads. This is actually one of our drilling laydowns. You can see it even on Google Earth. Coming across further to the west, you can see there's a number of drill roads that have been put in across the project, focused on the Gretchen system. So it's a really easy project to explore. The drillers even are actually driving there with their Honda Civics. The road's in such good condition right now that they're not even bringing the trucks in. It's a really neat spot to be exploring.
That's great. That's super helpful. Thank you.
I'm going to sort of wrap up with one question and then a closing statement, Kelly. So just summarizing again, the news flow for the next 12, 18 months, much as you can say, kind of what should we be looking for? And then some kind of idea of rough idea of when we'd be looking for a first resource. So you have our attention. What are we going to be, what promises should we be looking for?
Well, I'll give you, like, on a wink basis. On a visual level, we always announce in our press releases when we see really significant gold. So in the past few, we've announced that we've seen visible gold in essentially all of our different zones. So expect some interesting drill results in the coming weeks and months as those assays get received. Expect the metallurgical results. Expect some basically continued drill results, continued advancement of the project up until the maiden resource, which we're expecting will come out Q4 or Q1, Q4 2020, Q4 2021 or Q1 2022.
Excellent, thank you. Closing statement. Why should we go buy some stock in the next hour?
One of the most cashed up juniors with one of the biggest drilling programs on the market to date, drilling some of the highest grade holes again on the market right now. We've got a team that has done it before and hopes to do it again with Amex in the Perron project.
And how many rigs and how many meters for this program?
6 drills, 200,000 meters, news every 3 or so weeks consistently over the past 2 years. So we'll keep that up, if not increase our state of news, our rate of news flow.
Can't argue with 200,000 meters. That's on the high end. Excellent. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll be asking for some feedback. Please just give it to us. It's helpful for us, helpful for Kelly and everyone over at Amex. And follow them on Twitter and LinkedIn and all the other places they would be, and follow Amvest as well. So thank you very much and have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks.